what were some of the things that helped you the most in your putting game?
I think it helped to, practice with um, varying degrees of stability of discs. And, not just a lot of people feel like the best way to practice, and you hear it time and time again, is like, get 10 of the same disc and practice over and over and do that. But my philosophy is pretty much the opposite of most people, where I feel like every putt is different, just like riding, every wave is different. Your stance is never going to be the same. The wind's never going to be the same. There's just thousands of variables that are, changing all the time. So, repetition is good to a certain point, but, creativity, I feel like on the putting green is the most important. So just treating every putt uniquely and differently and situationally. And something I do that is practicing with a bunch of different putters and being able to adjust and make little slight adjustments and still be effective. And that translates to the course, I think, a lot more than just trying to do the same thing. And that's the only way you're practicing.
I think I'm following you here, where it's better to like move around, try to throw a different shot every single time you putt. Maybe you're only putting one time instead of standing there with a stack of discs and just going at it. So is there any good like practice, like, I don't know, like drills or something that you're doing with that? Like, let's say you've got 5 different putters. Are they just randomly scattered around the basket, or how do you kind of go through that process?
I like to change it up. I don't really feel like I need to stick to any one routine. Because then if I feel like I don't do that routine, maybe it's going to throw my game off. So don't really have a set routine that I feel like I have to stick to. I got really good at putting, in obstructed stances and out of bushes and stuff. But when it comes on to tour, then you're just practicing like wide open 25 footers, because that's what wins tournaments. That's what's, going to get you far on tour, is just being able to make them basically, like you said, the 25 and 30 footers. But that's not practical for like your average day golfer. They're going to be faced with, a lot more putts from distance than a top player. So, you can practice those wide open 25 footers and repeat that all day, but that might not translate to everybody's game. It doesn't translate to most people. Most people are, keep getting themselves stuck out at 30, 35 feet in awkward situations. And if you get good at those, then, you're the talk of the town at that point.
Do you ever feel like you struggle with, plateauing and feeling like you're not getting better at putting, or where you become stagnant and maybe the putter doesn't feel as good as you were? And what do you do to kind of give you that either confidence or that advantage back in your putting, if that does happen?
Yeah. I'd say there was a time, after 4 or 5 years of being a good putter, where, I got good by making it as complicated as I could and trying to dissect everything. And that got me really good. But then, sometimes I wasn't working, and I actually found myself going back to a point where I was able to completely simplify putting to where it's not complicated, and, go back to kind of the core principles of why I structured my putt the way I did. And oftentimes, from your amateur even to some of the top pros that I've helped with their putting, when things are going wrong, you're oftentimes thinking that you're not doing enough and you need to do more because it's not working, when in fact the opposite is the case most of the time, to where you're doing too much and you need to back off and go back to the basics. And so anytime I miss a putt, next time I'm up there, it is absolute basics and then starting over.
And when you're saying basics and like the way that you physically putt, what do you mean by that?
Well, I have a few things that I go back to. And basically it's the way I naturally hold a disc in my hand without thinking about it. My preferred putting angle. It's not something that's not going to be natural for me. And, you know, sometimes I will change that up in a tournament, but then if it's not working, I can go back to where, okay, this is naturally how I hold it. So I don't even have to think about that. Depending on how far away I am, I think about the spin rotation, how many rotations are coming out of the hand. I have little rules for distances as far as how big the pocket is, which is like the power pocket for the putt. You know, I may only allow myself a couple inches one way or another from certain distances. And I don't want to get into too fine a detail about it, but I basically have some principles that I can fall back on that are my basics for when things aren't going right. And, that works for me. It's worked for people that I've taught it to. It's something I teach in my lessons and clinics I've been doing for the last couple of years, and it's changed people's lives for sure.
Yeah, I feel like that makes a lot of sense, and there's no point in us really asking you specifically what yours are, because I feel like they're going to be different for every single person.
I agree. Yeah.
And I feel like it's something that, when you're in a tournament or you're in a position where you're under stress, or maybe you're not having a good round, or you feel like your putting is off, these basics are what someone can just calm down, think about, like when they're doing it during their practice round or whatever, and basically focus on that to try to step away from whatever pressure situation they're in, or like you're saying, just going back to the basics. That way there's less going on in the head, and the only thing you're thinking about are the things that should put the putter in the basket.
Exactly, Horatio, you're onto it. And the best advice I could give for putting is, when you're practicing, practice without the basket, and practice controlling that putter all the way to the ground for a full flight. Because most people, when they're practicing, and I did it for years, you're target orientated and you might be a little tense and giving it little half goes instead of doing a full putt, just like a full throw. And it's really hard to do when you're target orientated. You take that basket away and you naturally send that putter through the air 10, 25, 30 feet. It doesn't have to be very far, and just get that natural motion of what you're naturally going to do to get that putter through space and time, and then apply that to the target, because what you're naturally going to do isn't going to break down in a pressure situation. If you're trying to emulate something or somebody, that's going to break down a lot quicker in a pressure situation than what you naturally would do, so you don't have to think about it.
I think that's really good advice. I've never even thought about that before, but that does make a lot of sense. If you're just trying to control the flight of the disc, and if you're just putting without a target, you're able to just naturally putt, and it takes away that tenseness. It takes away that pressure. That is such a good tip. Wow. That really spoke to me, man. That was awesome. So I
We'll
guess
make the easiest 25 footer of your life after doing that. I guarantee it.
So that kind of leads me to, if that's such a good thing, is that something that I should maybe start before my round or before my practice putting? Should I just start by doing, 10, 15, just, 5 from each distance of just practicing my regular form of putting? Or is that just kind of something you do when you're not feeling good with
That's
your
all I've been doing for the last few. No, that's all I've been doing for the last few years. I rarely practice on a basket anymore. I'll only do it a few times. I have my set distances that I do it at, and I'll just do that a few times. If it's windy, I'll do it a few times in each wind direction. If it's not windy, I'll only just do it a few times, and then that's it. I might take 1 or 2 putts on the basket from close, but I really like to let my first couple of putts of the round kind of build into how my putting is gonna go. And that way I'm not letting my practice putting affect my round, because how many times you make all your practice putts and then don't make any in the round? So I've eliminated that out to where, it's just less going on, less thoughts in the head. If it feels good, you don't need to change it. It's like trying to cram before an exam. If you're not ready, you're not ready, So if you're feeling good and confident, stick with that. Don't change it and carry that confidence into the round.